Hello everybody! Today we're going to be learning about Yayoi Kusama. Can we try saying her name together? Let's say Yayoi Kusama. Very good. And we're going to be doing some of her pumpkins today. You can see behind me we have some examples, and we're going to do something pretty similar. This is Yayoi. Here's a picture of her and her giant pumpkin she does. What do you notice? What shape? What do we see all over her dress, all over the walls, and all over the pumpkin? What are those? You're right, they're polka dots. This is a picture of Yayoi at the age of 27 when she came to New York from Japan. So she grew up in Japan and she moved to America, to New York, when she was 27. And she is now 95 years old. Here is some examples of her artwork. She puts polka dots in everything. She puts polka dots on canvases and mushrooms. She puts polka dots on her dress and her hat and even a horse. This is called installation work. This means that this artwork, you can walk around it and touch it and be in its presence, and it takes up a whole room or maybe even outside. And she does this artwork where people can walk around her pumpkins, walk around her pink polka dots. Here's another example of her installation. As you can tell, she really likes polka dots. That's a whole room. And it's called installation artwork because you have to install it. Here's one more. These are all the pumpkins that we're going to try to do today. And here is Yakusama at her very first installation piece, where she made all of these pillows full of polka dots, and herself is kind of like a polka dot. Okay. So let's gather our materials. Does everyone have a pencil? Does everyone have their paints? We're going to need a stencil, our watercolor paper. Our watercolor paper is 9 by 12. Hopefully we have a pencil. And we need some water and watercolor. So go ahead and find your paints and brushes. And we're going to put those off to the side for now, because all we have to do right now is just trace our pumpkin. So let's go ahead and do that. So I don't want my pumpkin off the edge of the paper. I don't want it too much tilted. We're going to try to put it as close as we can to the middle. And can anyone guess what we're going to put on our pumpkin? You're right, we're going to do polka dots. As you can see, I have one hand on my stencil. This is called a stencil. And I am holding it down while I trace with my dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you're tracing with your right hand. If you're left-handed, you're going to trace with your left hand. But one hand needs to be on your stencil. Okay. Now that we're done with making our stencil, we're going to be using a Sharpie. We can't be using Crayola watercolor because Crayola watercolor marker will bleed. So we're just going to use a Sharpie. You always put the cap on the bottom of your pen. Okay? And we're just going to go ahead and trace as nice as we can our pumpkin. Okay? So everyone should be tracing their pumpkin with their Sharpie. And the next thing we're going to do is you're going to start from this point right here. We're all starting right here where the stem is. And we're going to do a curved line And that curved line is going to come all the way down here. So put a little dot right here. And we're going to make that curved line go as far down as we can to that dot. We don't want it a straight line. We're not making a straight line. We're doing a curved line, like if we're drawing an eye or like a rainbow, just like that. And this is what our pumpkin should sort of look like. Then we're just going to add some cool dots. We're going to put a dot here, a dot here, and we're going to space them out all the way down our pumpkin. I'm roughly making them all the same size, so try to do the same. It's okay if one's a little larger, if one's a little crooked, that's okay, they don't have to be perfect. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and do some dots here. What I do on one side, I won't have to do to this side. There's no wrong way to do your dots. But Yayoi Kusama often did her dots with some thought and with some pattern. So we're going to try to copy a pattern. So what I did on this side, I'm going to do on that side. What I did on my left, I'm going to do on my right. And if you notice, my dots are kind of curving. Okay, you can add some big dots if you want. You can add some little dots. I think I'm going to add some big dots right here. And if I do 3 here, I have to do 3 on this side. And then I can color those in. And then I think I'm going to add some really large dots. So let's see how I do that. So I'm going to have my large dots be so large that we can only see half of them. So I'm kind of doing like a crescent moon shape. And then we can color those in. And if this is a little too hard for you, that's okay. You can do different dots. Just make sure they're not really tiny. We want a whole bunch of dots that are different sizes, that are in a pattern. And what I do with one side, I'm going to do to the other side. So if I have a dot here, I'm going to put one on this side. And then color them in. If you want to put your dots somewhere else, I'm okay with that too. It's always fun to try to do what Miss C is doing. Okay. Now my pumpkin has plenty of dots. I think it looks pretty good. If you want to add a few more dots, you can. I might just do a few right here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to paint our pumpkin. So we need water, we need a brush, we need paper towels, because we need to clean our brush before we get to the next color, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get our paints. And we're going to be using yellow and orange first. What two colors? Yellow and orange. So I need to add some water to my yellow, a few drops of water to my yellow, and a few drops of water to my orange. And we're going to be doing some invisible painting first. That means that we paint with the water first. So let's just watch Missy. I'm going to do this center, and I'm painting with just water. I like to call it invisible painting. I'm just going to paint this whole portion. I'm not painting this side. I'm not painting that side with water. I'm not painting the outside of my pumpkin. Just go ahead and paint the inside, and that's it. Okay. Then we are going to go ahead and grab some yellow. So get your yellow, and we're going to color in the whole thing yellow. Alright, once we have everything colored in yellow, we have to wash off our brush, dab it with a paper towel, and if your paper towel doesn't look like a tie-dye t-shirt after our art lesson, then you weren't cleaning your brush enough. Alright, I got all the yellow off of my brush. I'm going to dip it in the water one more time. I'm going to grab some orange. And we're just painting the edge. Do you see how I'm just putting the edge? We're just painting, not in the center, just on the sides, the right and left side of the center of our pumpkin. And then we're going to go ahead and wash off our brush and dab it with our paper towel. Get off all the orange. And we're going to do some invisible painting again with our water. So just pick one side of your pumpkin. We're not going outside of the pumpkin. We're not going on the middle of the pumpkin. Just go ahead and paint the sides. Alright, and what color did we use first? We used yellow first. So go ahead, grab your yellow, paint your pumpkin yellow. And what do we have to use after our yellow? We have to use our orange paint. And what do we do before we change colors? Do I just dip my brush into the orange? No, no, no. I have to go ahead and clean off my brush, wipe it with a paper towel, and then grab our orange. And our orange is just going to go on the edges, right and left side of our pumpkin. And we have to do this side too right here. This is going to give depth, the illusion of depth. This is going to give our pumpkin some 3D characteristics. Alright, I'm going to wipe off my brush. And feel free to pause this video at any time if I'm going too fast. So what do you think I'm going to do first? Am I going to do yellow? Am I going to do water? I'm going to do water first. This is called wet on wet. We're just going to go ahead, paint with the water. We don't need too much water. We're not drowning our pumpkin. We're just getting our pumpkin nice and wet so the paint can move around the page. Because it is watercolor after all. We don't need too much water because then our paper will get too weak. Okay, We're going to grab our yellow. We're going to paint our right side of our pumpkin yellow. We painted the left side earlier. We painted the center. So we have the center, the left, and the right. Took me a long time to remember my lefts and rights from each other. But what helped me get really good at it is driving when I got my driver's license. And that helped a lot with my learning my rights and lefts. Okay, so we have our yellow down. I'm washing off my brush, cleaning it with the paper towel. And then we're going to go ahead and get that orange. We're going to go on both sides with the orange. Looking pretty good, huh, guys? Alright. We have to let our pumpkins dry for a little bit, and I'm going to play a video for you guys while our pumpkins dry. So, do we talk during a movie? Or when I show a clip, a YouTube clip? No, we don't talk. But we are going to leave our pumpkins alone, and we're going to watch this video about Yakoi-sama. And you're going to learn a lot of stuff, and I'm going to ask you questions, so I hope you're paying attention. Okay, let's listen up.
When Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama first moved to New York City, she stood at the top of the Empire State Building and made a promise to herself. She would become world famous for her paintings, her sculptures, and her extraordinary creative energy. She was thousands of miles away from home, and she finally felt free. Yayoi was born in Matsumoto, a city in Japan surrounded by mountains and nature. Her parents owned a seed nursery which grew flowers to sell across the country. Yayoi would sit in the flower beds with her sketchbook and get lost in her imagination. She knew, even when she was very young, that she wanted to be an artist. But her parents were against the idea. At the time, most artists in Japan were men. Yayoi's mum wanted Yayoi to become a housewife. They got into terrible fights, but Yayoi was rebellious and unstoppable. When her mum snatched away her canvases, she used old sacks instead. One day, Yayoi was sitting in the flower beds when all the flowers seemed to come to life. Their heads were like dots that went on as far as she could see. She felt as if she was being obliterated or breaking into little pieces and disappearing into a field of endless dots. After Yayoi got home, she sketched lots and lots of the never-ending fields of flowers and what she'd seen in the field. Drawing helped her to feel calmer and more in control. She could break herself into dots or self-obliterate and become one with her surroundings. She also used dots to connect with other people, like in this drawing of her mum. A few years later, Yayoi saw the work of a famous and much older artist called Georgia O'Keeffe, who lived across the world in America. She decided to send Georgia a letter and some watercolor paintings she'd made. To her surprise, Georgia replied and even said she showed the watercolors to her art dealer. The letter was the start of a new adventure. Yayoi would later write, "If Georgia had not answered my letter, I'm not sure I would ever have made it to America. It was because of her that I was able to go to the USA and begin my artist career in earnest." When Yayoi was 27 years old, she packed 2,000 drawings into her suitcase and got on a plane. Away from her parents, she could paint from morning to night. She worked on giant canvases and became known for putting dots on walls, on clothes, on people, even on a horse. Yayoi found lots of fans who wanted her to paint dots on their bodies so they could become a part of her artworks. She finally met Georgia O'Keeffe in person and made friends with other famous American artists, including Andy Warhol, Joseph Cornell, and Donald Judd.
Hello.
But like in Japan, most of the artists in New York were men. Yayoi had to work extra hard to stand out, and sometimes this would leave her feeling exhausted and anxious. But making art was a safe space for her, where she could feel at peace. Now in her 90s, Yayoi is famous around the world for her work, just like she promised herself that day at the Empire State Building. She sees herself as a single dot, and everyone in the world is a dot, connected to another dot. Our Earth is like one little polka dot among millions of other celestial bodies, she once wrote. Let's forget ourselves and become one with the universe. When do you feel most connected with the world? And what would that look like in a drawing?
Okay, so our pumpkin should be pretty dry. We need to do the background. So we're going to go ahead and grab our watercolor palette, and we're going to use blue or purple. So I'll give you the option of using blue or purple, and we're just going to paint around our pumpkin. So I'm going to use blue. I'm going to add some water into my blue, and I'm just going to go ahead and trace around. I'm going to be really careful not to get any blue into my pumpkin. And I'm just tracing around with my blue. Make sure your brush is nice and wet. If your brush isn't wet, it might be kind of hard to move the paint around. And we're going to paint all the way around our pumpkin. You can use blue or purple for this. I'm just using blue because I like the color blue. We just need a cool color, right? Because our pumpkin is warm colors. Orange and yellow are warm. And so we're going to have the background be a cool color. And you can paint the stem whatever color you want. You can leave it white. You can paint it green or brown. But let's do the background first. I'm just adding water to my brush. I keep adding water to my brush and adding paint. So I put a little bit of water, I add a little more paint, and I'm just moving everything around. Add a little bit of water, add a little bit of blue paint. Grab a little more water, grab a little more blue paint. Alright, I'm going to add some water. Wherever you put the water is where the paint's going to go, because the paint will follow the water. Now I'm grabbing some more paint. I'm grabbing my paint, adding some more blue. If your paint kind of looks like it's not moving around a lot, kind of like this, that means you just need to add a little more water, okay? It should be gliding on your paper. So you might need a little more water if it's not gliding. But you don't want to drown your page. Just enough. Just enough. Okay? And then I'm going to do my stem brown. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to the brown. And go ahead and paint this brown. You can do green, whatever color you want your stem. Alright, and that's a Yayoi Kusama pumpkin. I like it. Hopefully you like yours. Thank you guys, and have a great day. See you again soon. Bye.